What's up, Bills Mafia? Fernando Schmude here with another Leading the Charge. And today is a day to put away that awful game against the Jets and focus on the Las Vegas Raiders matchup week 2. I'm your host, Fernando Schmude, and I'll be doing this game preview via Buffalo Rumblings in your Leading the Charge. But before talking about the Raiders, I will have Randy Hardman joining me to have some observations and have a good talk about this Jets game and finally put it behind us so we can focus on week 2. So, Randy, thank you so much for joining me today, man. I've had some great interactions with you via Twitter, and it's awesome to be able to add you to the Leading the Charge today. Welcome. Can you hear me, Andy? Randy, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Randy? I think we have some technical issues here with Randy Hardman. I will ask him to fix his. I don't think he's hearing me. And we're gonna talk Bills. We're gonna talk Bills and Raiders. So I'm waiting on Randy to fix his connection so we can talk about Bills and Jets, Bills and Raiders. And feel free to interact via comment sections, Bills Mafia, so we can have a good interaction there. So talking about Bills and Jets, so we can put it behind us. Awful game, no other way around to talk about this, but I think it kind of showed us the Bills that we already knew, right? We knew that they were a really good team, but a flawed one that has fallen short in the last few seasons, and so they have their flaws. They aren't perfect. They're far from perfect. And even our quarterback, who I have really talked up all the time and have compared to Mahomes and have said that he's even better than Mahomes. I think we all can agree he has his shortcomings sometimes, especially about refusing to take what's given him. He really has to work on his patience. He has to work on being patient, on being cautious, on taking care of the ball, and taking what's given to him. And we knew that this game against the Jets wouldn't be easy, especially against the Jets defense, right? That's a great unit to that the Jets have there. I believe Randy has fixed it. Let me see if I can add him back to the show. Andy, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes, now that's working. Welcome, Randy. Thank you so much
Okay.
for taking your time to be with us today, man. And I'm just trying to put the Jets game away, put it away, right, and move on to the Raiders game. And we've had some great interactions on Twitter, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. Welcome, man.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
So I was just talking about the Jets game and how Josh struggled to take advantage of what was given to him. Like the game at the beginning, it wasn't like he was playing awesome or the Bills were playing awesome, but it seems like they could move the ball even though it wasn't easy or it wasn't through some big plays and the plays that we used to see Josh doing. But against that kind of defense, dropping back in cover, taking away the deep stuff and making Josh take the short passes, the Bills were able to kind of do it. And obviously without Rodgers, they weren't so dangerous to the Bills defense. And unfortunately, it just looked like Josh got bored of this kind of game and being patient and taking the short stuff and wanted badly to be himself, right? And I want to bring on that analogy that you made about the movie because that's a really great one, and I hope you can share it with us and with the Leading the Charge crew here, all the
Yeah,
people who are following us.
yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking about because everybody said the same thing. He said he wasn't taking what was given to him. He was taking too many deep shots, trying to make something happen. And I was trying to come up with a kind of a comparison analogy to make it a little bit easier to digest for a lot of people. And I started thinking about the movie Casino. And there's a scene in that movie. It's about a 2 minute and 2.5 minute dialogue where De Niro is talking about the whale Ichigawa, the businessman, the Asian businessman,
Yeah.
and he says that he plays hard and he's fast and he's got the cash and the credit to turn your lights out. Well, that reminds me a lot of Josh because Josh has the cash and credit being that howitzer strapped to his right arm and his legs that he can turn anyone's lights out if you give him the opportunity. Um, and so the way that they counteracted that is they boxed him in, made sure he couldn't really get out of town, which is what the Jets do. They box him in, make sure he can't really do what he wants to do. And then eventually, when he came back, he played small, but eventually got impatient, which is again a good comparison for Josh. He can play small in short bursts, but long term, like he's always looking to take that shot. He likes that kill shot. He likes that big deep ball. And the Jets knew that. So they knew that by making him play small, 10,000 a hand versus 100,000 a hand, that eventually he was going to impatient, start taking his shots, and that's where they would get their money back. And they did in the form of 3 interceptions, to basically uh, put the game within reach. And then all they had to do was just kind of get that last second score. So I felt like it was a real apt analogy for Josh because he can play small ball, but he's always looking to take that shot. And eventually, if teams are patient enough, especially the Jets, because of the way that defense is constructed, specifically to beat the Bills, uh, it really is effective for him.
Absolutely, they have the pieces, right? So it's not like, oh, everybody can replicate it. No, it's not that easy. No, to have
Yeah,
a defensive line like the Jets have, to have a defensive backfield like the Jets have, and even the linebackers, because Quincy Williams is real fast, and CJ Mosley, I believe, is uh, one of the best, is still one of the best mark linebackers in the league, and I was a huge fan of him in his Ravens days, and even early on his Jets days. I remember a game. I can tell you for sure the date, the year, but I clearly remember a game that the Jets were playing really tough against the Bills, and from the point that CJ Mosley got injured and left the field, the Bills started to be able to move the ball and they could win that game.
yeah,
And
absolutely. I remember that game too.
yeah, yeah,
Yep,
I think he was injured in a coverage snap. If I remember correctly, it was a shot or a pass in the middle of the field in the near the end zone, and he got injured, the muscular stuff, and got to
yep,
leave the game. And from that point on, the Bills could move the ball and could score and could win that game. But as long as Mosley was on the field, he was a nightmare for that Bills offense. I don't even remember if Josh was already the quarterback. Maybe it was Tyrod still, but he's an impact player. He's very smart, and he knows how to play the position against the pass, against the run. So that's a great defense, and that's why in my preview to the game, Randy, I said if the Bills can play really well against this defense, look out because they will be a dominant offense for this season, and Josh will be at MVP level again. So obviously we struggled, and he had those interceptions, and people are like uh, even questioning if you would trade Josh for Zach Wilson, which is kind of crazy kind of conversation to have at this
yeah,
point. Overreactions all around, but I think he has all the skills, the everything in place to just
yeah.
get back on track and play a great season again. The
Look,
thing
with
is,
with with Josh, it's all about him fighting himself. The big plays, the hero ball stuff. It's muscle memory that's been built in for him since he was in prep doing high school ball because I'm sure a lot of people realize Fireball, California is not exactly rife with talent, you know. So he was the best player on the field in high school. He was the best player on the field in JUCO. And if you pay attention to like Wyoming pre when Josh got there, during his time, and then directly after, there's a stark difference between the amount of games that they won. And I mean, yeah, they might have had a few other players there, but most of that is because of the impact that he brought, not only just to the offense, but to the overall team. So, I mean, he's used to being the best player on the field and having to basically will his teams to win. And even though in Buffalo he's got way more talent than he's ever had in his life, that's still a muscle memory thing where it's hard to get over. And if he's feeling boxed in and he feels like he's getting the pressure and he needs to make a play, he's going to do it. And so that's where we see some of those bonehead Josh things that people just have such a hard time with. Like, I understand it. I followed him for a long time, you know, during Wyoming in that year and leading up to it, and did a lot of research on his background. Like, I feel like I get his mentality. So yeah, it annoys me, it aggravates me, but it doesn't bother me to the point of, you know, going overboard and wanting to, you know, trade him or saying he's not one of the best he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 3, easily. And if he can corral some of that and kind of evolve his mentality, then he can easily, you know, move into that 2 or even 1 spot down the line. He's got the talent. It's just about harnessing it and correcting his own internal flaws.
Yeah, man, I'm of the opinion that when he's at his best, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. That's my opinion. I respect people, and obviously Mahomes has the Lombardis, he has the MVPs, he has the, you know, the resume that Josh still doesn't have so far. But when he's playing at his best, man, I normally say Josh can do everything that Mahomes does. I don't think Mahomes can do everything Josh does, you know? So that's why I believe he's the best player at his position.
Yeah.
But he gotta fight his own demons, just like you said. Randy, with you being a guy who followed him from a long time now, even through his Wyoming days, just like you said, because if I remember correctly, you were fully on board with and you loved the pick. I hated the pick when it happened. But yeah, and I'm not trying to dance around this stuff. No, I hated it, man. And I never deleted my old tweets because that's something I said. And I don't feel the pressure like I need to be right all the time. If
No.
general managers, scouts, they make mistakes all the time. Why Fernando Schmude from Brazil have to be right all the time, you know? So I don't care, man, with my mistakes, right?
Right.
I just share my opinion and my thoughts. And sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm bad. But I keep firing, you know. And I hated the pick, but it was kind of that lazy scout, you know. Like, okay, I've heard this story before of the big time arm, big time athlete that coaches fall in love because they see all the potential and they think, oh, I will work with him and he will be a better player, and then they can't for some reason. Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Mallett, Paxton Lynch, JP Losman. Yep. So we have a lot of those, you know, we had a lot of those in the NFL. But people who followed him closely could see that thing that Ray Lewis says, you can't measure heart, you know, could see the heart from Josh. That's something that I didn't have in my evaluation of him as a prospect.
And another big part of it was how underdeveloped he was from, you know, from prep on forward. I mean, and a lot of that was due to his own choices. So, you know, Josh growing up, his family was not, they weren't rich by any means, but they had enough means to where if he had wanted to, if he had pressed the issue, he could have gone to a bigger high school. He could have gone to the 7-on-7 camps. He could have gone to the Elite 11 qualifiers and all that. Like, he could have done all that if he wanted to. If he wanted to strain his family and have them driving him around and all other stuff, he could have done those things and been in the Darnold and the Rosen and the Mayfield and the Lamar Jackson. He could have been in those camps. He didn't. He chose to be a 3-sport athlete. He chose to help his family on the farm. And those things put him behind developmentally. So when he got to the pros, like a lot of the things people said, they're like, why did he end up at Wyoming? Why was he in JUCO? Because he went to Fireball High instead of going, you know, to high school closer to Fresno and getting more exposure. So those were choices that he made. But ultimately his talent shone through enough to where he was able to make it to that big stage. why did he have scouts going all the way out to Wyoming? Why were people flocking out there? Because they saw this raw, untapped potential. And so, especially at the college level, like numbers can be so deceiving. They can be the biggest liar out there because not all things are created equal at the college level. And the sooner people realize that, the better off they are. And I saw that early with Josh. And so I was a lot more forgiving as far as evaluating like the numbers and the play and like watching it versus some of the other guys, like with Mayfield and Darnold. Like I knew that those guys were Elite 11 guys that had gone through all the quarterback training from an early on. So a lot of their game was more finished than Josh. So there was less room for growth. Same thing, Rosen, same way. You know, a guy that essentially peaked like his first year in college and really in high school. And there wasn't a whole lot more after that. And so when people were infatuated with him, I was like, man, you're looking at the wrong things. I don't know what to tell you. So that's kind of my stance with Josh and how I got in on him early. And that was draft day, man. I was probably one of the very few people that jumped off their couch in excitement and not, in anger.
Absolutely, man. And the question that I really have for you, Randy, being able to follow Josh for such a long time, is for you, that for people like you that really believed in him before the draft, could you already see this kind of internal fight against himself, just looking for big plays, not protecting himself? Could you see that as a potential reason to be a little bit afraid of him as a prospect in the next level? Was this the kind of, for example, even for people who believed in him to become a superstar just like he did you already had in mind this kind of, okay, that's something that can hurt him in the next level, that's something that he gotta change? Or do you believe that, you just gotta live with both the good and the bad, and that's who he is? And how do you see the situation, man?
Yeah, I mean, when he was coming out, my thought on it was that let him catch up as far as how far back he is. So like, and Joe Marino did a good job of kind of tracking, like he was behind so many snaps, right? So once he caught up to that, you could see where he moved past the guys in his class. So like Mayfield went 1, Darnold went 3, Josh went 7, right? And for the first probably year and a half of their NFL careers, they were around the same area. Mayfield, I think, started off a little bit better. But then after that is when Josh really caught up, right? And it's been, to the moon since then versus those other 3 guys. Lamar was my second favorite guy in that class, and he went exactly the way that I thought he would. He went exactly the way I thought he would. I said, put him on a team that's going to utilize his skill set to the best of his ability to start with, and then develop those refined passing skills further down the road, and he's going to be, an all-pro quarterback. And that's exactly where he is. Like, he's a Pro Bowl, all-pro level quarterback, and I think it's just going to take him having, the next evolution as far as his, other passing issues. But aside from him, with Josh, it really was a matter of let him get caught up, put talent around him to where he can trust what he sees and trust his receivers to make plays to where he doesn't feel he has to do it all himself, put it all on his shoulders. He's got big shoulders, but they ain't that big. He's got to learn to trust people around him. And I think what you're seeing now is that he still has that feeling of, I got to do it all myself. It's not a hindrance for me because the good far outweighs the bad. But at some point, like in the future, down the line, at the end of the season, in the playoffs, like there's got to be a way to break through that. And it's all on him. It's all going to be on him. If he can force himself to calm down and say, I've got enough around me, I'm going to let my playmakers make plays. It doesn't have to be on me.
Absolutely, man. And about your analogy that you shared earlier on, I just wish you can really make it go and make it Kyle Brandt hurry and pass the recommend the casino movie to Josh so he can see it and maybe think, oh, it makes sense, it's something.
Because I mean, when he says he didn't think about winning 10,000, he thought about winning 10,000 meant he was losing 90,000.
Yeah,
because he normally plays 100,000 a hand. And in so many ways, right?
Yeah,
That's Josh. You know,
absolutely.
he could hit the underneath stuff and he might even see it. Like he'll see it, post game when he's watching film and all that. Like they're going to point it out to him and be like, obviously, you got a guy right there. Why'd
Josh,
you
you
go?
had the
Why'd you go
first
deep?
down. You had the
Yeah.
first down. Look, just run.
Yeah.
No, I
All you
will
got
be
to do
missing the
is
touchdown, right?
right. All you got to do is run a couple yards. We would have had a first down. He's not thinking about
Yeah,
moving the chains. He's thinking
yeah,
about kill shot, touchdown, score.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Sometimes you just got to get a first down.
Absolutely. So if somewhere Kyle Brandt can see this, please take this analogy to Josh, please, Kyle.
Yeah.
Help Bills Mafia, man, please. And other than Josh, Randy, I told this in my leading the charge in the post game in Portuguese last Sunday. Um, I think overall the Bills they aren't as bad as people want to believe now, but I
No.
think they showed again that they kind of are the same team. Like the defense can be really good in regular season, can be the top score low scoring defense in the NFL. The offense, I obviously believe they are gonna be great, and we have a Raider fan here talking trash in the comment section. And sorry, man, but I see your defense being killed by Josh Allen, this Bills offense. All right, if he has his head straight, and the Bills probably are going to put up a lot of points on this Raiders defense with all respect. And they will be able to be a top five offense again. And Dorsey, I believe he can get better in his second season. I don't see him as a bad offensive coordinator. So I think they're going to be good enough to again maybe the division is tougher, so maybe win the division, maybe not. But they're gonna be good enough to make the playoffs, to be a contender. But they're flawed. I think the same mistakes as we always see, they repeat again and again. So I don't trust them to be able to play four great games in January now and go to the Super Bowl, win it. Right now. I don't trust them with their flaws, but they aren't as bad as people want to believe now. How do you see this first game and how do you see this team going forward? What could you see that really scared you for the season other than Josh being over aggressive? And what could you
No.
see as something that is still flaw and still something that the Bills need to get better during
Sure.
the season?
So as far as the season outlook goes, I felt like the Jets, and the reason why I wasn't really overly excited about this first game is probably the worst matchup for us to open the season out of all available opponents.
Mhm.
They play Josh the hardest. He's struggled with them. I don't think that performance is indicative of any major issues going forward. I really feel like it's one of those things where they kind of got our number right now, and we got to work on uh, the way that we play them specifically in the future to win that next matchup. Having Wilson going in game planning for Wilson versus Rodgers is going to make a difference, obviously. But that was a bad matchup for us, and it doesn't really concern me moving forward. As far as the Raiders go, I mean, I for the guy in the comments, I get being confident in your team, and Max Crosby is a monster. But outside of
Yeah,
Max Crosby and even Chandler Jones, there's really nothing there that scares me, concerns me, has me thinking that there's going to be really anything that they can do to put up any sort of fight against all the different skill positions. I mean, Moreg's all right. You got Marcus Peters, but other than that, defensively, the Raiders got nothing that can stop this offense. I mean, your best hope is that Josh Jacobs rips off a big run every third time he touches the ball. Other than that, roll covers to Devontae Adams and dare him to beat you with Michael Mayer. Jacoby Myers is probably going to be out for this game with a concussion. I mean, what are you looking at to where
yeah.
you think this
I'm
game's
just
going to be
sharing the.
competitive? I think it's going to be a blowout, 3-4 scores.
Me too, man. I just sharing the defensive depth chart of the Raiders, and just like you said, okay, I get that you have Crosby and for the people who are really worried about the fight the Bills put against the Jets, and they are like, oh, this is gonna be a problem. Max Crosby versus Spencer Brown, man. Tillery, Nichols, all due respect, but they aren't Wilkerson. They aren't that Jets defensive line. They don't have
Not at all.
the deep rotation, so the Bills can game plan against Crosby here, and he obviously is a tough matchup as a one guy, but not as a unit like the Bills need to deal against the Jets. I really believe the Bills will be able to run the ball against this defensive line, unlike against the Jets, where they had a tough time to win the matchups at the line of scrimmage. And just like you said, okay, Marcus Peters maybe is a guy who can take advantage of bad Josh if it appears again in this game. But we saw that in games where Josh needs to rebound from multiple turnover games, he usually does well. He's more careful. The Bills play a little bit more under center, just like you pointed out in the Twitter, right? More under center stuff, a little bit more running from under center where you can punish more opposing defensive lines, and you can open the play action for Josh where he's so dangerous.
And that's
like
one of the
said,
things that they've gotten away from is the traditional play action stuff. Like I don't see it as much. And again, I don't go back and rewatch games and all that. Like I don't have the time for it really. But based on my memory of watching the games, like I just don't see a lot of that, traditional play action plays that really, and that's one of Josh's strengths when he was coming out. It's still one of his strengths that he has incredible ball fakes. Like you can lose it if you're not paying close attention, just watching the games, much less trying to defend it. And I think that really opens things up. And I just haven't seen a lot of it. And I wish they would get back to a little bit more of that and just traditional, traditional running style plays and not the college, mesh point, RPO type stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a traditionalist. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fair point, and especially okay, we saw Josh playing well in this kind of shotgun offense and airing it out, especially when we have no choice and gotta play from behind. But early in the games, if especially I have in mind that game against the 13 seconds game against the Chiefs. That was maybe the highest point of Josh's career, and he was coming from that awesome game against the Patriots. And during the entire first half and until the beginning of the second half, the Bills were playing with Josh under center, play action, trying to run the ball with Singletary, being very well balanced, not being very aggressive, overly aggressive at least. And in the second half, right after Josh hit a big bomb to Gabe Davis out of play action under center, after that, the Bills started to open it up and go shotgun and really enter in that bang bang versus the Chiefs. But before that, they played in a more traditional way under center, trying to run the ball. And I believe that might be a way to keep Josh a little bit easier, like a little bit calmer, a little bit without being overly aggressive so early in the game. You keep that kind of stuff for late in the game if it's necessary. So that might be something we can see against this Raiders defense. After all, they don't have really a great team, a great defensive unit here, and even Chandler Jones to be able to play this game is a question too. So other than Crosby and then Marcus Peters, you don't have really huge playmakers or guys that you got a game plan for in this defensive side of the ball, guys that can really win matchups against the Bills offense, in my opinion.
No, I mean I agree with that, and I think going back to Crosby, I mean, look, they're gonna have to try and find ways to be creative to get away from him, whether it's adding in Dawson Knox in the end to chip him, or whether it's basically running away from him, incorporating some short game to kind of draw them back a little bit, make sure he doesn't just have his hair on fire the entire game. I mean, look, they're watching tape of us and they're seeing that weakness of Spencer Brown and even Deion Dawkins sometimes too. So Crosby is going to be one to plan for, but as you said, the rest of them, I mean, there's nobody there. Tillery, maybe a little, but overall, no. I mean, there's nobody there that's going to keep you up at night. It's Crosby, and more Crosby, and if you can find a way to neutralize him, then you should have a pretty good day.
Yeah, man. Especially, I look at the Bills roster sometimes, and and I look at it and I'm like, okay, I can see a good roster, but not a great and awesome roster, a loaded roster, maybe like the Eagles or the 49ers, even sometimes the Chiefs and the Bengals. I see them as a good roster, but I see like, okay, Josh still gotta be Superman to win against those great teams. Against the Raiders, man, I don't see this kind of team. I see a team that they don't have people to cover Diggs and Kincaid and Gabe Davis. The same can't be said against some of those tougher competition. Usually the Bills struggle when they take away Diggs and they make somebody else beat them. The great defenses, the good defenses, the Jets, for example, maybe. The Raiders not. I don't see like this. I can see Gabe Davis having a good day against the Raiders. I can see it's a great opportunity to try to get Kincaid going and make him confident and to
Yep.
try to jumpstart him to become this number two option, right? Or this escape valve
Yeah,
to Josh in the middle of the field. I think that's a great opportunity against this Raider defense.
absolutely. And that's kind of the reason why you make that investment in Kincaid. I mean, traditionally rookie tight ends don't contribute very much their first year. And I totally understand that Kincaid is being asked to be a little bit more than just a tight end. He's very much a do-it-all type of weapon guy as far as where he's going to line up, snaps, and they're going to be playing a lot of 12 and all that. And that's great. That's why you would take a guy like that. So him kind of getting into that role and becoming that 2A, 2B target for Josh, being able to be a chains mover and being able to be somebody that he can rely on in the clutch to catch the ball on a consistent basis, it's going to really open up this offense. And like you just said about, when you play teams like the Jets or when you have, the top tier teams that you're playing against, they take away Diggs. What do we have? Well, now we have that other option. We have that other answer to say, all right, if you want to roll all that coverage to Diggs, well, now we got this big guy out here, plus Davis, plus the slot guys that we have mixed in there and Knox. So you can't, if you focus just on Diggs, now we have the weapons just by adding Kincaid to be able to open things up that much more, to be able to keep pace with anybody. I think, I know that Lou Anarumo is a great defensive coordinator, but I really think a healthy Bills team now with Kincaid, like by the end of the year, I think that's a different game offensively for us versus last year.
Definitely, man. And how confident are you in Gabe Davis still? Guy just got voted by his own colleagues as a captain. All the talk about him playing injured, the ankle bothering him last season. And okay, just like Jamie Demico said here a few weeks ago in the Leading the Charge, having an ankle issue doesn't make you drop passes. Okay, I agree. But how do you feel about? I was kind of disappointed in him against the Jets. I expected more. I know he didn't see the ball a lot. There weren't a lot of targets his way, but I still he still is who he always been. The deep threat guy, the kind of one trick pony where he gotta make people respect him deep, and then he can punish them with some out routes, some comeback routes, routes that even we don't see as much as we saw in the past under Dable anymore with Dorsey. But those routes, I think, it's where Gabe can really punish defenses. But expecting him to be, oh, now he's gonna start to contribute more on the short stuff, intermediate stuff. I don't think Gabe is this kind of player. How confident are you as a compliment to him? Because to Diggs, because I was totally all over go and get DeAndre Hopkins train. And I felt like okay, the Bills are gonna regret passing on him, and my hope now is more like on Kincaid being able to replace that, or a mix of Kincaid and Gabe, but not only Gabe. How do you feel about Gabe going forward?
I think Gabe is who he is right now. He's definitely better utilized in the deep intermediate areas than in the short game. I just don't know if he has the type of ankle flexion and quick twitch ability to be able to do a lot of that short stuff. He's definitely not anywhere near in the mold of like a Cole Beasley or a Hardy or Shakir or any of those guys. Like he's good at running those deep and intermediate routes, and you can pull up the analytics and the route trees and all that. to back that up. I think it's been proven over and over. Now, Gabe thinks that if given the opportunity to run a full route tree, he's fully capable of that. He considers himself to be a high end receiver. I think he is a B plus type of receiver. I don't know if he was ever given the opportunity to be a one. I kind of reminds me of like when Peerless Price went to the Falcons after he
Mhm,
left Buffalo, where he
mhm.
was paid like a one, but he never really got there. And I think Gabe is along those same lines. Like he's a great guy, he's a good receiver, he's voted a captain for a reason, but I just don't know if he has all the skills necessary to be the guy that carries the wide receiver core on his back. As a complement to Diggs, I think he's a very good complement in that intermediate and deep area. And I think with the addition of Kincaid and then the further evolution of Knox, you have a really good group there. Then you add in the slot guys, the Shakirs and the Hardys and those type. I think it's a nice group. I don't think it's like elite right now. I
Mhm.
wouldn't put it with Chase and Higgins. But overall, I think that they can create problems for any team across the league under the right circumstances.
Awesome. Let me know one thing that I've been realizing or watching during the preseason and now week one, and I've been kind of meh. Like Deontay Hardy, man, he was supposed to be electric. He was supposed to be a quick, twitchy guy, an upgrade to Mackenzie, a guy who would make people miss, and I haven't seen it so far. I don't know, man. Is it my eyes? Is it me becoming old and not watching it really good anymore? But because, man, I really expected more from Hardy. It's still early. Maybe he can get going during the season. I hope it happens. But I haven't seen that game-changing ability out of as a returner, and especially like people were all over Dorsey, killing him. Oh, fire Dorsey. Dorsey had some new wrinkles to the offense and tried to get the ball on Hardy's hand early on against the Jets, but I just couldn't see him taking full advantage of that. How do you see Hardy so far? How confident are you on him becoming a threat in his role?
I think it's one game, first of all. It's very early. And also, I go back to the way that the Jets play us, right? It's not just a problem for Josh, but it's also for our receivers. If they're cutting off everything over top, that also means that they're sitting on all the. So that's why they're willing to give you the underneath stuff. Say, we're going to make you beat us by the Brady method of death by 1,000 paper cuts, right?
Hmm?
So if they're playing that way automatically, anything that comes underneath, they're going to be on top of. And we saw it. Like Hardy would get it, wouldn't get far, tackled. Same thing with Diggs, same thing. Anybody else. It wasn't a whole lot of run after catch. And so Hardy's biggest, advantage is the quickness and the quick twitch and everything. And that lends itself to being open in space. The Jets weren't giving him space, right?
Hmm?
Against other teams where he's able to catch it in space and make a move and get to the second level, I think he can make some really electric plays. I don't think he's a full load type of guy. Obviously, he's a contributor type. Um, but I think it's way too early to make a definitive judgment on that yet. If we get to week 8, week 9, week 10, and we're still seeing the same limited impact, yeah, you can question it. But right now, it's way too early.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I just haven't seen really a real upgrade over Mackenzie. At least we can agree that it has been an upgrade in the sense of taking care of the ball, not fumbling, not botching some of those punts. So at least in this department, he's being more dependable, right?
I mean,
I hope it
McKenzie
can.
got like 5 years from us, didn't he? I mean, he
Yeah,
got a
absolutely,
lot of leeway for a limited
absolutely.
impact. I think if Hardy's around for 5 years, we would see a lot more impact than what we got from McKenzie.
Absolutely. To close out the offense, so we can talk a little bit defense and Raiders offense. Marcel is the dad of the Os Irmãos Sapequinhas. That's the Portuguese for the I don't know the saucy little brother, something like that. Okay, so Marcel is the dad of these guys, and Marcel is asking us about Spencer Brown if he will be playing, starting. That's what he means here. Uh, I believe so, Marcel. They won't bench Spencer Brown right now. It's early, and he wasn't he he wasn't good, but you know, for somebody that they never tried to replace or to get real competition during all of season, it's not a one bad week that they're gonna bench the guy and go another route. So, how worried are you about Spencer Brown, Randy? Because a few years ago, I felt, I believe again, in the season that ended in the 13 seconds. My gosh, it always comes back to my mind. I gotta move on, man. But if I remember correctly, that year I used to tell people here in my lead in the charge in Portuguese. I used to tell them, look, this team is really good, but we have a huge hole in this offense. That's John Feliciano. We gotta replace him. We gotta find somebody in the trade market. And I remember the Jaguars guard being a possibility thrown around during the trade deadline, and unfortunately, we never fixed that season. But John Feliciano was the hole in our offensive line, and right now, I don't feel our offensive line is really awesome, but it's not awful. It's a decent group with Spencer Brown being the problem, in my opinion. How do you feel about him going forward? Do you think a move gotta be made there? Do you believe still in him?
I mean, I think Brown started off good his rookie year, and then it's kind of been a descent from there. Where he finishes the year, I don't know. I want him to do well because I'm a Bills fan, because I want that position to be locked up. But right now, I don't have as much faith as I did going into the season, or even last year. You know, when you can kind of put it off on some injuries. I do think long term they need to look for a better answer there. They did sign Jermaine Afidi to the practice squad, and chances are, if he's healthy, that you'll probably see him get elevated if Spencer Brown continues to struggle. I know there was a report today that they showed interest in Lyle Collins, who just got released from the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's another guy when healthy is a very good player. So there should be some competition brought in, and I think going into this coming draft, tackle should definitely be on everyone's mind. Because again, this is year 3 for Brown. He'd be going into year 4 of a rookie deal. There's no 5th-year option, obviously, as a day 2 pick. So it's one where you need to start thinking about futures there. And if Spencer Brown isn't the guy that you want to extend and bring back, then you got to start looking for other options. So I would keep that in the back of my mind come draft season.
Yeah, Marcel is obviously without any patience anymore with Spencer Brown, and it's understandable. I can understand him. But I believe Marcel Spencer Brown will get some games still until they try to go in a different route, and maybe Philly or bringing somebody else from outside. But
Yeah,
for now,
they're not going to bench him after 1 week. It's just it's
no.
not the way this coaching staff operates.
Yeah, for sure. I think they will be patient. This is year 3, first year with a real off season of work for him since he got drafted, right? So they're gonna give him a little bit more time before he can really maybe be benched or maybe finally play closer to the level they expect him to be able to do so. Red and White Bills has his wife here from São Paulo, and he got his in-laws in the Bills Mafia. Awesome, man. We have a decent group here in Brazil, man. Great to hear that. And so to close the offense, I'm really happy with how Torrance has played so far as a rookie. It's obviously early, but the way he was inserted in the offensive line almost since day 1 in the training camp, and beating if not a high potential guy, but a sound guy in Bates, and being able to play the way he played against Jets and against Wilkerson, man, it is impressive. And I really believe Brandon Bean finally could hit a pick in the second round with this guy. How do you feel about Torrance?
Well, kind of the opposite of the Cody Ford pick, right? You know, Cody Ford he moved up for Cody Ford, and that pick didn't work out for, whatever the reasons were. So you see him take another swing on Torrance, and this time it looks like it worked out. I think Torrance was, from my eyes, from everything else that I've read, I think he was everything that everyone imagined he could be. I think he's going to get better. He's strong. He's solid. I was very impressed with what I saw. I like what I saw. And I think it's only upward trajectory from here. So it seems like finally that position is locked down. And when you're talking about the offensive line, this is if Connor McGovern comes back next year, right? Which he should. He was signed. He was signed for that purpose. That would be the first time Deion Dawkins plays next to the same guy in his entire career, from the time he was drafted to now. So, and for O-line continuity, that's huge. For only having two guys that have been consistent starters there in the last, 3-4 years, having guys come back year over year with Torrance and now with McGovern, it's going to be a big deal for us. So I'm excited about the future of the offensive line. Hopefully it gels together going forward, but I'm pretty excited about Torrance and the O-line in general. We can just fix that right tackle spot.
Awesome. So, Randy, let's talk some Bills defense and Raiders offense, right? And let me share again the Raiders depth chart here. And the Raiders offense, man, especially without Jacoby Myers, because with Jacoby Myers, okay, they have a nice group of skill position players. It's not awesome, but because maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a decent, but he's not the quarterback that you really fear, right? But Josh Jacobs, awesome running back. Devontae Adams, awesome wide receiver. Jacoby Myers as your number two. That's a guy that I really like as a number two. And Hunter Renfrow, a guy who a lot of people love. I know my friends at Cover One love. Greg Thompson loves Hunter Renfrow. He wanted to trade badly for him sometimes during this offseason. So they have some decent weapons, but still, man, that's not an offense that's gonna put a lot of points on the board. And this offensive line is very suspect with Greg Van Roten, our old friend, starting for them, right?
Yeah.
So that's a mismatch where you expect Ed Oliver to eat, man. And I don't get my hopes so high because it seems like every time I really believe Ed Oliver can become the guy we hope he could become, then he plays badly, man. And the last time was against the Bengals in the playoffs last year against that backup offensive lineman that they had there. But now again, man, an opportunity against a guy who he played against a lot during practice, and that's a mismatch that the Bills got to explore. The Bills defensive line looked good against the Jets. That's something that everybody's just talking about. Josh just talking about all that went wrong, but there were some positives in this game, and one of them that I was really worried about was the defensive line performance without Von Miller, because last year without Von Miller and with Von Miller in the lineup, they were two totally different groups. And they start against the Jets was really good. Floyd played great. Rousseau looks like a guy who's taking the next step. And inside also, we know what we can count on Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver being dominant. I think they have a great opportunity here against the Raiders to showcase their improvements for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to be happy with the defensive line in the first game against the Jets. Leonard Floyd, worth every penny of that late deal that they signed him to. That was a great move by Bean. For all the things you could criticize Brandon Bean for, getting some of these free agents late in the free agent period is genius. And Leonard Floyd being top amongst them this year, he was worth every penny that first game, and I'm really looking forward to watching him and Rousseau, and then eventually when Von Miller comes back, watching those guys just continue to wreak havoc off the edge and play with their hair on fire. Oliver, man, I mean, from the day he was drafted, the big question was, being an undersized, spark plug type guy that he is his speed and power going to be enough to overcome the lack of length to be able to make a consistent impact and become an elite player that you would expect with a top 10 pick? And so far, the answer has been not enough. He gets opportunities, and when he does, he tends to make the most of them. But then there's sometimes where he just can't really, finish it off, get in there and do what you would want him to do. Now, some of that has to do with the consistency next to him on the interior. And now with a healthy Jordan Phillips and with Daquan Jones and Tim Settle, hopefully he gets that consistency to where you can rely on him a little bit more. But the growth of Greg Rousseau, this year so far, and then adding Leonard Floyd is just it seems like a night and day difference based as opposed to last year. So and then you have AJ Epinesa and Shaq Lawson even getting in on the action on Monday. Very exciting stuff for us as Bills fans and for the Bills as a whole. I think from linebacker position, I mean, what can you say enough about Matt Milano? Just being a hell of a player there. I didn't get a chance to focus on Terrell Bernard a lot, but I from what I hear, he did pretty well in his first start. I know they got Christian Kirksey waiting in the wings, and a lot of people want to plug him in automatically. But I'd say if it wasn't a complete fire the first game, I would not move off of Bernard yet. If I were this coaching staff, and I don't think they will, I think he was their plan. The fact that he missed the entire preseason and walked in as the day one starter, I think means a lot more than some people realize. I was never a big fan of his from the day he was drafted. I didn't really get the pick. But
Like
obviously
one
the
of
coaching
our arguments on Twitter.
yeah. Obviously the coaching staff likes him, and look, if it's good for the Bills, it's fine by me. So that's where I stand on it. I'm totally willing to disregard the fact that I didn't like a pick as long as it works out great for the Bills.
And how did you feel about Dorian? Because it was kind of doubling down, but maybe you like the prospect better.
No,
Bernard. No,
no. I hated the idea of drafting another undersized will linebacker in the third round. I thought, for lack of a better term, I thought it was dumb. I thought it was unnecessary, and I was a big Jack Campbell guy coming out, so I was really disappointed that he didn't slip further to where we could have gotten him in the second. Obviously, I love the fact that we got Torrance as a backup, as a backup plan for that. So I'm not going to say I want to give away Torrance by any means, but I just didn't really get the Dorian Williams thing. I know some people were high on him, but especially since we just took Bernard the year before, I was like, man, what are we doing? We're backing up, the same position over again. And I mean, unless the idea is to for whatever reason, move off Matt Milano, which I just can't understand, would ever be the idea, then you're basically just taking a backup and a special teamer with a premium pick. And I consider anything day one and day two to be premium picks. And I hate the idea of wasting premium picks on guys that don't play, valuable minutes, valuable positions, valuable starts. And so, I hated it.
fair enough.
Again, if he becomes a great player, then fantastic. But not a big fan of it right now.
Yeah, man. And I just feel like, especially when Bean himself said it in the podcast with, I forgot his name, the long guy, Chris Long, maybe.
Yeah, Chris Long,
former pass rusher, right? And when Bean himself said about maybe Edmonds was a little bit too big and a mismatch, and then I think that kind of confirmed to me that they wanted like a double Milano pair at linebacker, even if it's gonna bring difficulties due to size and because Dorian and Bernard they are, just like you said, they are perfect for Milano's role, not for Edmonds' role, But when Bean said something like that, I was like, okay, that's been the plan, and maybe that's why they double down with Dorian Williams as a plan B, maybe next year on, if Bernard doesn't pan out. But I liked what I saw from him. And again, if he plays badly, I will be the first one to tell you, I think he sucked, But no, I liked how poised he was. Like, he's in a role of leadership and communicating all the time. And I could see a lot of this from his game, in this game, about Bernard communicating, about him being in good position. If you look at the cover run, break it down perfectly. In Rodgers' play where he got injured, Rodgers was forced to hold that ball mainly because of Bernard, because Bernard took away the tight end, passed him out to the safeties, and then took out the other crossing route. And then Rodgers didn't have where to go anymore, and that was the time to Floyd arrived. So I think he's a good fit, especially in coverage. Obviously, against the run, we got to be careful because we are a small defense now. You already said Oliver is undersized. That can't be uh, it's obviously true. And then we have Milano and Bernard, and they try to upgrade a little bit the size of the defense, taking away sometimes Tyrone Johnson and using Taylor Rapp as the nickel or the weak side linebacker in the base defense. The defense is small, man, and it's not like we have a lot of speed in the secondary, right? Or
Yeah.
secondary isn't the so. I'm a little bit afraid of this combination of small front seven and slow defensive backfield. It's not a great combination. It's not something that we used to hear about when we think about a smaller defense. But to answer John here asking, do you think they will even call Christian Kirksey up after he learns the playbook? I think Kirksey is the plan B for this season. Uh, I think that's where they feel safe now about having Kirksey as the plan B. They aren't comfortable enough having Dorian starting this year. It's been pretty clear. They don't plan on having Dorian ready to play middle linebacker this season. They think Dorian needs at least 1 year to learn it, just like Bernard had, right? And Dorian might be a factor in this competition next season. But for this year, man, it's Bernard getting his shot, in my opinion. And if after 6 weeks, maybe 7, if they don't feel really comfortable and Bernard struggles, I believe they're gonna move on to Kirksey maybe after the the bye week or something like that, and they kind of can feel a little bit safer with Kirksey there, but not in their plan, of having a double Milano. Let's put it like this: Kirksey and Milano aren't interchangeable pieces. Kirksey is your traditional middle linebacker, and nothing wrong with that, but it's all a matter of what's the plan for this defense. And I feel like they have a plan with this kind of smaller linebackers playing, already.
Yeah. I think Kirksey is more of an insurance thing. They wanted. I mean, Bernard missed the entire preseason with an injury, so I think with Dorian Williams not being ready yet for that role, I think signing Kirksey, a guy who I think being admitted, he's like they've kind of been after him for a few years. So being able to get him on the practice squad, acclimate to the system, and then bring him up to the roster if need be is a good get, for Bean and for the Bills. Kind of break glass in case of emergency type thing. I don't think that they would move off of Bernard quickly as long as it wasn't a complete dumpster fire, which obviously based on week 1, it wasn't. So yeah, I think it's a good backup plan, and it's smart by Bean to go ahead and bring him in early so he can get acclimated and be ready to go if called upon.
Awesome. Randy, to close it out, man, looking at this Raiders offense, how do you see them? I gave a quick look at them, but how do you feel
Sure.
about this offense and with those weapons, this offensive line, the quarterback? What's your opinion?
So I think based on week 1, they didn't use Renfro a whole lot. So was that kind of just a week 1 thing, or was that a trend going forward? We're not sure yet. You got to account for them. Obviously, you have to account for Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. So that's kind of your holy trinity as far as the Raiders offense goes: Renfro, Adams, and Josh Jacobs. Outside of that, the rookie Michael Mayer, keep an eye on him. And then also the other rookie that they drafted, the other guy from Cincinnati, Trey Tucker, the speed demon. I would be careful about if he trots out there, about where he's lined up and keeping an eye on him, because that's a guy who has elite speed. He's not just fast. That guy has elite speed. So if he goes out there, especially with Myers out, if Jacoby Myers is out and Trey Tucker has to come out there and play a little bit more than maybe he would normally, I would be real curious to see how they go about making sure that he doesn't get loose on somebody. Because if remember Lee Evans, if he's even, he's leaving. Trey Tucker's faster. So if he gets open and they can get the ball to him, I don't think there's anybody on our defense that'll catch him from behind. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Obviously, Devontae Adams being Devontae Adams, you got to double up on him. But it's all predicated on Jimmy G having the time to throw. And with this defensive line, I don't think there's enough consistency there to really worry. I mean, I'm thinking, 33-13, that type of score, and it's going to be comfortable for us.
Yeah, man. I really believe the Bills have the perfect matchup here too, especially without Jacoby Myers, who's a guy who has proven that he can play well against us, also against this defense. He knows the matchups, he knows this
Yep.
defense and how to get open. Uh, I
And the
think they have,
offense.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the Bills have a real nice opportunity to get back on track this in this home opener, and to show that they aren't as bad as they were in week one, and they
No.
are still the top contenders from the AFC East, in my opinion, and obviously a challenge with the Dolphins and even the Jets is still with this defense. We saw them being in. They weren't like, oh, I saw another thing that I said in the last leading the charge in Portuguese. It's not like the Jets without a quarterback. They were a bottom three team. They were fighting for a playoff spot, and that defense was leading them there, right? That defense and Brice Hall mainly. But
The
looking
one that got
forward to,
away, Brees
yeah,
Hall, the one that got
yeah,
away.
yeah, that guy,
Ugh.
man, that guy, and we'll see him a lot for a lot of years, unfortunately. But I really believe the Bills can show the world again this weekend that they are ready to compete and to be a contender again. Will they be good enough to win it all? I don't know. I think this season will be an opportunity to solve the issues, to see if Spencer Brown can keep his job, to see if Bernard can keep his job, to see if Benford, who played great in this first game, can keep the cornerback two job, to see if the old guys, aren't too old right now, right? And they can keep playing at a good level, at the championship level. But I think the Bills will be there. They will be competing. And if they lose this game, man, with all the respect to the Raiders, but if they lose to the Raiders in this home opener, then maybe we could start to get worried about, okay, maybe they are starting to implode under McDermott, or things like that. If anything can happen any given Sunday, maybe it's still too early, even after a loss against this Raiders team. They aren't no slouches, but I think that's the perfect opportunity to get back on track, Randy. I think they must win this game and and showcase the world they aren't this a joke like they are being treated right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the definition of a get right game. You know, it's a home opener. It's against all due respect an inferior opponent. So they should be able to go out there and work on the things that they feel they need to work on and win this game. Can't take anybody lightly, obviously, but this is a get right game. This is where they kind of put it out there and say, this is who we really are. Week one was an outlier, an anomaly, whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, this if they lose this game, and it really depends on how it happens. But yeah, if you go out there and you lose this home opener, there's some questions that'll have to be answered and asked, more so than they have been. I have a hard time seeing it, man. I
Yeah.
really do. I mean, on the 1 to 10, I'm at like a 9-8.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chance for Vegas, but I don't think there's much one.
Awesome, man. Randy, thank you so much for taking your time joining us here today, man. It's been a blast, and I could stay all after. It's already 2 p.m. here in Brazil. I could stay all afternoon talking Bills with you, my friend. It's been awesome. I really appreciate you taking your time joining us. And the doors of leading the charge are always wide open. When you want to join in, just hit me up, man. It's gonna be a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, man. Anytime, anytime. Like I said, I'm available. I'm at work right now, so I got to get back to work. But yeah, man. Anytime you want me on, just shoot me a DM, and I'll be more than happy to join you. This is a great time. I appreciate it.
Awesome, Randy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bills Mafia. You participated in the chat and interacted. I really appreciate you taking your time at least to hit the like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings YouTube channel. You also can hear me and the Leading the Charge on your favorite podcast aggregator, Spotify, Apple Podcast. And I will be back on Sunday with a post-game show in Portuguese for Brazilian, Latin America, all Portuguese-speaking language countries. I'll be talking Bills in Portuguese on Sunday post-game show. Bills Raiders, hopefully after a great win, just like Randy and I predicted here, right? I hope so, man. And thank you so much, Bills Mafia. See you around. Go Bills.
Go Bills.